note. David and I like to do these things in tandem. That way we don't bore you to death. Interesting that a couple of things that both Chris and Kim brought up, and that's that common ground, that idea of we used to be at odds with each other a lot of times, environmentalists and conservationists against developers and builders. And I think we've gotten long past that, where we're working together a lot more and are finding common ground. And a lot of what this WaterWise guide is about that common ground. So this is a photograph that David took in September. We flew over the Comox Lake watershed just to have a look at a number of things. And I think this has a pointer, right? When we flew over, I noticed movement right here. I actually saw the ice sloughing. If you look at this from town, this is one of the rock peaks. This is the other rock peaks that you see from town. This is a much reduced glacier, as you've all seen it disappearing over the last few years. How many of you used to ski on Forbidden? Used? Yeah. How long has it been since we skied on Forbidden? These things are changing. So these things were our water storage to a large extent. The glacier and our snowpack, which is iffy at best nowadays, was where we stored our water. That's where we got our water from over the long term. At the same time as these warmer temperatures have reduced this stored water, climate change is creating precipitation changes as well. So the long-term trend, of course, is for heavy rain followed by drought. And this is borne out in a lot of people's thinking right now. So a question for thought is, how do we begin to replace this storage?
So from the stewardship perspective, it's not possible to achieve watershed health unless our human interaction with our natural areas is based on knowledge and understanding of how they function. What has changed recently is that we have become aware that accumulating impacts are not just an environmental problem, but they also have social and economic impacts as well. We are here today to participate in this workshop as we see the implementation of the WaterWise Development Guide as an important step in addressing impacts from development.
It really is at a time now where all of us have to act as stewards. There's no separation anymore between those of us who are stewardship sector and you folks. We all have to do this together. These are natural assets. You're looking at Comox Lake here. This is the very rare and sensitive Comox Bluff. These are natural assets, and they have value. And we're moving into an era where we're starting to value these things, actually monetarily, in line items in budgets. And I think we'll see that start to come to all of our awareness. Lack of understanding and awareness over the years has led to accumulating losses of ecosystems. And we'll show you a series of maps in a moment. Impacts to the foreshore and estuary are pretty profound. Lots of good work going on to restore some of that. Intact riparian areas like this provide an important water storage function, as well as habitat and bank stability and all the good things that riparian areas do. This, another properly functioning riparian area. This is part of Morrison Creek, and we're going to get a bit detail of this in a moment. But this is a functioning corridor. It allows wildlife movement. It's got good bank stability, water storage functioning, and it provides habitat for a myriad of both terrestrial and aquatic species.
In 1992, the province produced what's called the Sensitive Ecosystem Inventory. It's known as the SEI. There are 9 types of sensitive ecosystems in the Comox Valley, and these include things like riparian areas, wetlands, forests, woodlands, and seasonally flooded agricultural areas. Many municipal and regional governments use the SEI to identify sensitive areas when they're doing their planning. There was a reassessment of the SEI again in 2002, which gave us a way to measure the impacts over that 10-year time period.
So this map shows what was inventoried between 91 and 2004. A lot of this was done in 2002, but the map came out in about 2004. You'll see every one of those green polygons on this map are intact ecosystems. So in 2004, that's what the map looked like. sorry, in 91, that's what the map looked like. In 2004, the reassessment showed huge losses. All the black is lost. Now, that's not quite true because some of it's logged mature forest, which, of course, if it's logging lands, will be regrown. In a lot of cases, a lot of this has been lost to development. The yellow are all degraded. They're less than they used to be. They're not intact anymore. So as of 2004, this is what we had left. The green polygons were all that were remaining in 2004, and it really was a shocker. It was a shocker to us. We rolled out these maps to a whole number of groups of people, and everybody was quite moved by these very dramatic losses.
So in 2013, we worked in partnership with the Comox Valley Regional District to do another assessment of the SEI for the Comox Valley. It's the first time it had been done by anywhere in BC from looking at the 2002-2004 assessment. So now we had a 20-year period to look at. And what we found over that period was that if we can, let's look at a couple of the ecosystem types. So we look at the impacts, they had two, and in this example, the riparian wetlands, since we're looking at water-wise, those are two important ones. You can see that a large number of riparian wetland ecosystems have been lost, fragmented or reduced over that 20-year period. And development activities have accounted for a sizable number of the impacts. And an example would be wetlands, where 75% of the wetlands that were lost were direct impact of development activities. And this is an area equivalent in size to 17 times the ballpark fields on Lewis Park. So think of Lewis Park times 17. That's the area of wetlands that have been lost over that 20-year period from development.
So these losses get to be profound when they start to add up. If you think about Brooklyn Creek, for example, Brooklyn Creek has Crown Isle at its headwaters. The headwaters are basically severed from the rest of the creek, and Brooklyn Creek has a lot of problems. Glenn, I think well over $1 million spent on controlling flooding as Brooklyn Creek enters the town.
Much more than that, yeah.
Even more. So these things cost money, and they've been costing money for years. Whereas if you look at a creek like Morrison Creek, luckily over time, the headwaters, the area up here, never got developed. It is private managed forest lands. It's operated by Hancock Logging. You can see this map was made in about 91. Oops, wrong button. There's a fair amount of logging done early, but a lot of this is regenerating. Even this fairly recent one here is starting to really green up again. These are ongoing logging harvesting, so not lost, just changed and altered. Here, the greens are all of the polygons. If I were to lay the latest assessment of these SEI polygons over this map, it's virtually unchanged. So for many, many years, this has stayed undeveloped. You'll also notice that there's good riparian zones between everything. A little thin in some of the logged off areas, but logging practices are improving and leaving better leaf strips as well. The different colored streams relates to different types of fish presence, but you notice as the stream comes together, a very faint blue line. This is the line of the stream that actually goes down to the puntledge and joins with the puntledge. And again, you'll notice that the riparian area is quite intact. So, 4 strong species of fish, of salmon. We've got 2 good species of trout here, an indigenous lamprey, and a system. The most important thing to get across to you today is this system does not dry up in the summer, and it does not flood, even at the most significant rain event. It doesn't overtop its banks because it's mitigated by a functioning headwaters. Important kind of things to understand about these natural systems. Yeah.
Okay, so why does it matter? Our communities are facing the double whammy of aging infrastructure and climate change. Healthy watersheds naturally manage rainfall. Protecting and restoring streams and wetlands through water-wise development has many benefits. Keeping water on the site longer and slowing down runoff will be beneficial in maintaining better summer flows, reducing flooding, and buffering our communities from extreme weather events. It's also critical for maintaining healthy aquatic habitat. by helping to prevent erosion, maintain water flow, and cool water temperatures. All of these processes assist with maintaining and mitigating flooding, and of course provide healthy, sustainable habitat for salmon. Maintaining the natural function of riparian and wetland ecosystems and healthy riparian buffers will reduce the need to install and enlarge hard infrastructure.
Take the pressure off existing infrastructure as well, as we marry these things with an asset management, watershed-based type of approach. I really feel strongly that local governments have a real responsibility here, and I think pretty much everybody agrees. Of course, from the stewardship perspective, we would like to see things more heavily regulated. We would like to see zoning, conservation zoning, where a riparian zone cannot be built in, where a wetland cannot be drained by law. But we know how difficult that kind of prescriptive, that type of approach is. But it is pretty much a fact that it's a result of our natural infrastructure losses are a direct result of allowing development into sensitive areas without due care and attention to these systems and their the formative systems that surround them.
New development can be an opportunity to do things differently, both to protect and to restore damaged ecosystems. New integrated stormwater management planning marries green infrastructure with the watershed. Approaches outlined in the WaterWise development guide can save money in the short and in the long run. Green infrastructure and restored watersheds appreciate over time. Hard infrastructure depreciates and adds to the long-term liability.
And our wrap-up is about collaboration. Collaboration is an important part of developing WaterWise. It's critical in order to reduce the environmental footprint of our development. Collaboration is needed between departments inside a jurisdiction so that upstream and downstream impacts are understood and are taken into account as we develop. Between jurisdictions is becoming more and more critical. None of these watersheds follow jurisdictional boundaries. I don't know of one watershed in Comox Valley that's all within one jurisdiction. Wouldn't it be great if our boundaries were watershed boundaries? Collaboration with the stewardship sector is crucial as well. We really feel strongly about this. We have the long-term knowledge of each of these watersheds. Each group working in the watershed has that corporate knowledge. At this particular place right here, I did the mapping and the assessment of that back in '97. And I've watched this stream since then. I can tell you what happened, right? This is what stewards bring to the table. We know and understand the whole watershed. We don't just look at it in its bits and pieces. We're also very skilled at assessment. We're very skilled at restoration. We've done all kinds of restoration projects. The Mount Washington Mine is a very good example of the kind of things we get done. And monitoring. And monitoring we see as one of the key pieces that we need to really pick up on and start to monitor and get baselines in place so we know where we're headed. And collaboration with stewardship groups can save local governments and developers money, both in the short term and long term. And involving stewards early in the process gets the full value of their knowledge. Thank you. Oh, I did want to mention the map. You can see there's quite a few on top of each other at the regional district, and there must be a lot of regional district employees here. But you know, I expected us to be a bit more spread out where we live, but we're not. We all tend to live fairly close in. Probably all due to sustainability and our awareness these days that we don't want to be driving too much. So this was actually an interesting little exercise. Thank you all for doing that. Anybody who hasn't put a sticker up, we're asking you to put up 2 markers, one where you work and one where you live, and use any color you like. Thanks a lot.